Hello, star people. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Ascend the Matrix podcast. I'm your host, Chrys King. I'm a shamanic healer, psychic medium, astrologer, ascension guide, and creator of the Medicine Alchemist and Ascended Astrology. I assist awakened souls, light workers, and starseeds like yourself heal, connect with spirit and star beings, create 5D businesses, and ascend the false matrix. And this podcast will take you on a multi-dimensional journey through the world of shamanism, ascended astrology, UFOs and starseed contact, conspiracy theories, or should I say truths, and the multi-dimensional nature of reality, with the intention of bridging the gap between 3D and 5D so that we can ascend the matrix together. And my guest today is Julie Ryan, who can sense what medical conditions and illnesses a person has and facilitate energetic healings as a result. She can communicate with spirits both alive and dead and considers herself to be a buffet of psychicness. Julie's book, Angelic Attendants, What Really Happens as We Transition from This Life into the Next, describes a series of events that involve angels, multitudes of deceased family and friends, the spirits of deceased pets, and countless serendipitous and miraculous moments. Each week, Julie scans callers on her Ask Julie Ryan show, which is heard in over 100 countries throughout the world. And having founded 9 companies in 5 different industries, she's a businesswoman, author, podcaster, and inventor, with her surgical device inventions being sold across the globe. Well, thank you so much for being here, Julie, for this episode of Ascend the Matrix podcast. I am so happy to have you here, another psychic medium and medical intuitive. We both share that in common, and I don't get to have conversations like this very often with other people who have really come into their gift later or learned to come into it, because it was always there for me, but I also learned and came into it as well. So I really resonate with your story. So introduce yourself for our audience and tell us about yourself and how you got to this point.
Thanks so much for having me. What a delight to be with you. We
Yeah.
had such a fun conversation before we started recording. I said, okay, we both said we should start recording because we'd be going on and on without it. I am a businesswoman and an inventor of surgical devices sold throughout the world. I'm an entrepreneur who's founded 9 companies in 5 industries. And I learned how to do woo-woo, and now I'm a buffet of psychicness.
Love it.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, yes, and I appreciate the journey and arc that you've been on, which is similar to many of us practitioners who were very much successful or rooted or on a path within the matrix or within the normal 3D world, and somehow something pulled us into this realm. It was always there for me, but for many people after 2012 especially, there's been this huge shift where people are being called into the space of being a healer, a connector, a light worker, and it's beautiful to see all the different ways that that's happening.
Well, more than 30 years ago, little over 30 years ago, a girlfriend gave me a book called Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Mays. And she called herself a medical intuitive. And I thought, well, what the heck is that? Because as I mentioned, I'm an inventor of surgical devices sold throughout the world and former manufacturer of them. And I was always interested in helping people heal. And I'd never heard the term medical intuitive. I was doing it the traditional way, manufacturing surgical devices and selling them through the hospitals and helping the medical providers, whether that be a surgeon or a nurse or whomever, help the patients heal. And so I was interested in all of this medical intuition stuff. And at that time, we didn't have the internet yet, Chrys. So I went to a bookstore because I thought, well, they're more likely to have something, maybe even more so than my local library. And I found a book called Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan. She's a former NASA physicist. She's deceased now, who parlayed very complex quantum physics principles into understandable English.
Which I
And
love that.
for the non-scientific mind, that would be me.
Yeah.
And she was using quantum physics to help people heal. And I thought,
Mm.
ooh, I want more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I called her school and I said, do you guys have anybody teaching this stuff in my area? And lo and behold, they did. They had a
Wow.
graduate who was teaching a class, and I studied with her for 6 years. I
Mm.
studied the energy healing and the Kabbalistic healing. And here I am 30
Yeah.
years later. It was funny though, Chris, when I was doing it, my family and friends said, "Well, why are you doing this?" And I'd say, "I have no clue." They
Yeah.
said, "Well, what are you going to do with it?" I said, "Again, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I
this was
just was
definitely
drawn to it."
revolutionary in the 1990s, you know?
Yes, very much so. So this was probably about 95-ish, 30 years ago
Mhm.
when I was introduced to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see, especially after 1987, when they say the harmonic convergence occurred. And then there's this huge shift in consciousness. There's these layers of it. And by the time you get into the 90s, there's a huge wave of people. And this is also talked about in a lot of Dolores Cannon's work, like her 3 waves of volunteers, people just being called into their soul mission, into their sacred role. And what was that like for you moving in this direction? Because now you do this full time. It's like what you do,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so
Well,
how did you get from there to where you are now?
Well, like you mentioned, I didn't have dead people chasing me as a child, or if I did, I didn't know it, let alone what
Right.
I would have done with that information.
Yeah.
And I sold my surgical device company in 2015. And I thought, all right, now what? And so I wrote Angelic Attendants, my first 7 books. The eighth one's coming out by the end of the year.
Awesome.
Never
Very
thought
cool.
I'd ever write a book.
Yeah.
Never occurred to me ever. and and I teach people from all over the world how to do what I do, the buffet of psychicness. Everybody can do it. It's super easy. We're all doing it anyways. We just don't realize it.
Right. Right.
Little children are very good at woo woo. Woo,
Hmm.
by the way, in Taoism means source. I don't
Woo.
know if
Wow.
you
I
knew
never knew
that.
that.
Yeah. So I
Wow.
say woo woo because it's fun.
Yeah.
And then I learned later that it means source.
Well, I love that the people who use that word negatively in the world, the average person who uses it as a term of embarrassment, like you're one of those people, you're one of those woo-woo people, but even just the frequency of the word woo-woo actually means the source. So it's
Exactly.
like even them using it, we're invoking the spirit.
Exactly.
I think that's super cool.
Yeah. So I have a fun story about how all this came about.
Well,
And
I'm
it
ready
really
for a fun
started
story.
with my book. My mother was dying in 2002, and that was the first time I'd ever been around anybody at the end of their life. And I had been studying woo woo for maybe 10 years at that point, not quite. And on one side, I felt like the Lady of Justice statue. On one side, my heart was breaking because she was dying very unexpectedly. On the other side, I was seeing all this spiritual stuff, angels, deceased loved ones, spirits
Yeah.
of deceased pets. I mean, all these occurrences that were happening around my mom and helping her with her transition. And so it made a heart wrenching experience have a glorious component to it. So, fast forward a couple of years later, I was with my mentor and teacher. She was doing a healing on me. And when I'm having a healing done on me, all my deceased loved ones' spirits line both sides of the table.
Yeah.
And this one day, Chris, this spirit of a dead pope shows up. And he's got his pope hat on and his shepherd's rod, whole 9 yards. And I said, "Well, who are you?" And my mentor, Susan, could see him too. And he said, "Well, I'm Clement." And I said, "I'm so sorry. I've never heard of a Pope Clement." And he laughed and he said, "Well, I was number 6." I
Wow.
said, "Okay, great. How may I help you?" And he said, "You're supposed to teach the world what happens when somebody dies because it's been so
Wow.
bastardized over the millennia.
Yes.
And you know what happens." Because by that point, over those 2 years, I'd helped several other friends and family members who had a loved one who was transitioning and described what I was seeing. And it brought so much comfort.
Yeah.
And he said, you just need to get on with teaching the world." And I laughed and I said, "I'm really not interested. I'm a businesswoman and
Yeah.
people will think I'm nuts. So thank you for stopping by, but no thanks." And he said, "No, seriously, really, everything you've done in your career and in your life has prepared you for this. So
Yes.
he treats me like a Nike ad. Just do it."
Yeah.
I said, again, thanks so much, but not interested. So about 10 minutes later, Chris, I go to get in the car. It's just for kicks on my phone. I looked up Pope Clement the Sixth. Come to find out, this guy was in office during the Black Plague.
Oh, wow.
He's best known for his prayers for the dying and his prayers for the dead. And I
Wow.
thought, Ryan,
Wow.
you can't make that up.
No.
I never heard of the guy.
Yeah.
And so here he is. So, two other things that really got me to this place, two other parts of the story, if I may share those.
Yes, of course.
Next step, I'm in church, Catholic Mass on a Sunday morning between my husband and my son. The priest from the altar during his sermon says, wouldn't it be nice if somebody could really tell us that the angels and our loved ones meet us and lead us into paradise when we die? And I'm thinking, I'm getting elbowed from my husband and my son. I'm thinking, really, God, you're giving me grief about this from the altar, from the
Right.
pulpit? And I'm thinking, all right, all right, all right. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I wrote a outline of angelic attendants and all that about what happens when somebody's dying. And we put up the Ask Julie Ryan website. I leave a couple weeks later. I'm speaking at a business conference of C-suite executives, mostly men in the audience. I'm in Texas
Yeah.
and give my talk. At the end of the talk, this guy comes up with his iPad open to askjulieryan.com. And I'm thinking, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And he said, is this you? And I wanted to say, well, yeah, there's my picture. And he said, I'm really interested in knowing more. Can we sit together at lunch? And I'm smiling and I'm saying, yeah, that would be great. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh, good. So I can just get pummeled for an hour at
Right.
lunch about the
Right.
woo woo stuff.
Right.
So, Chris, we sit at this table of eight. I'll always remember it. It was seven C-suite men and me. All they wanted to talk about was woo woo. They didn't want to talk about the conference. They didn't want to talk about the
Wow.
business stuff. None of
Yeah.
it. They just wanted to know about spirit, what happens when somebody dies, what about the medical stuff, all of that. And I thought, okay, God, I'm in full
Yeah.
force. Sold my company,
That
and
was your
the
sign.
rest is history. Well, it was confirmation with all of those different things that were leading me and saying, Ryan, get a grip. This is what your path is.
Right.
And I've never had more fun in my life.
Yeah.
I'm having such a ball doing all of this.
Well, that's something that I wanted to bring into the conversation as well, is usually when there's difficult aspects to my soul mission, as an incarnate from other star systems and other lifetimes here on this planet and doing a lot of shadow work here. There's a lot about my soul mission that has been really dark and I do not want to relive again and all of that. But when you fully step into your soul mission consciously, make a business out of it, be of service to other people,
Yeah.
it usually is not something that you find boring or not fun. There's something exhilarating about it. Even if it's the business stuff wears you down or all the technical stuff with websites, as spiritual entrepreneurs, we're always dealing with the constant evolving technology. And we're like, when is it all just going to be energy and crystals like it's supposed to be? What is all this Riverside and Zoom and podcasting and all of this? It is a lot for us to navigate that world and being so in spirit and working in other dimensions. But I feel many of us really were set up. I was an actor. I ran $1 million businesses in corporate environments. When you put all of that together, it turns into someone who's able to have their own business as a shamanic practitioner, as an astrologer, as someone who can get on and do social media posts and edit. And there's so many things that I learned in my journey that make my job now very easy, that a lot of spiritual practitioners, they're like, I can talk to the dead, but I don't know anything about making my own website. I don't know anything about social media. So I think a lot of us who are really have been set up through some type of spiritual contract to have learned a lot of those things. So by the time that we tapped into what we were really supposed to do, we could fully do it and get it to the people, who we're serving. And so your story sort of reminds me of Teresa Caputo, who I was obsessed with when I was a young person and growing up, Long Island Medium was one of my favorite shows, and I always wished I could be a medium. Even though I exhibited those traits several times as a child and growing up, I never thought I was. And then my Kundalini awakening forced me into realizing, because then you start having experiences like you did, where once you open the floodgate or admit that about yourself, it's like they all are like, okay, now she knows, or he knows, that he can, what he's seeing is not an apparition, or excuse me, a delusion. He doesn't think he's going crazy. We're really going to come and try to connect with him. And that's when it all blew up like a explosive device for me, and I couldn't avoid it. But for many years, I never felt like spirit was constantly talking to me or constantly trying to get to me. Even to this day, people say, is it annoying having spirit talk to you all the time? And I'm like, no, it's almost like a radio I can turn off and on.
I do too. I turn it on and
Many
off and on
psychics
at
cannot do
will.
that. They
Yeah, I do
feel like
too.
they struggle with that, and I cannot stop from absorbing your emotions, but I can stop the valve from the 4D and 5, like all that spirit energy that comes in. I can
Right.
stop that for the most part.
Right.
But some people can't. And so I think people like us can still go to bed at night and still feel like we're living a normal life and choose to come into our office as mediums and turn that on, where other people from childhood were just bombarded by it and almost traumatized by it. And thank goodness, I think we didn't have to go through that, because it would have maybe stopped or inhibited us longer if there was all this fear and trauma around it. For me, like yourself, there was really a lot of joy and a lot of excitement coming into my mediumship abilities and work. It felt like there was some ego at the beginning, like I get to be Teresa Caputo. Like I do have the abilities that I just thought she was so incredible for having. I just looked up to her so much. I saw her as a healer. I didn't just see her as a medium.
Oh,
I
she
saw
is a
her as a
healer.
gift.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
because she brings comfort to the
oh,
bereaved.
absolutely. And she does it
Right.
so well and so uniquely, as I'm sure you do and I do. But she did not have this necessarily as a child. She came into it through a mentorship when she was 30, 40 something years old. So I want people to hear that many of you all are mediums and psychics, and you all are walking around drinking coffee and taking NyQuil every night and going to work and have no idea, because you're just so in the matrix, and you're so like Teresa, she kept having panic attacks, and that was her cue to go to a healer, and the healer said the panic attacks are spirit trying to communicate and you're shutting it off. And that's when it all came online for her. She wasn't 13, she was 40, 38, whatever she
Mhm.
was. So
Mhm.
I want people to hear that there's a lot of you all out there that have gifts that you haven't even tapped into. And do you see
Right.
that?
I was 36
Yeah.
when I first started exploring it. I did have in my 20s a girlfriend that did Reiki, and she
Which was
was
still pretty new back then to the
20
mainstream
years
culture.
older. Yes. So this was in the 80s, the mid 80s. And she said, I'm going to make you a Reiki master. I said, well, what's that?
Yeah, that
I'd
sounds
never
cool.
heard of it. And she kind of flitted around and had candles lit. And I thought, and she's Armenian. And I thought, oh, I'm like in the middle of some Armenian voodoo ceremony
I
or
know.
something. And she showed me these symbols and stuff. I was like, great, cool. That was it.
Yeah.
I really didn't know what it was. It made her happy, made me happy.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And then when my son was born, he in the 90s, in the early 90s, we were at a friend's and he fell down and he skinned his knee as a toddler. And he was on my lap and I was kissing his boo-boos and, that kind of thing. And I put my hands over his knees. And then he got down and he went and he played some more. And in less than an hour, I was putting him in his car seat, Chris, and there was no trace of skin
Wow.
knees. And I
Wow.
thought, okay, there's
Yeah.
something to this.
Yeah.
But I really didn't spend any time, delving into it until the mid 90s. And that's when it really went. And people say to me, well, with this business, well, what are your goals? And I'd say, I don't have any. And they'd say, well, don't you have a business plan? And I said, no, it's the first time in 9 companies I've never had a business plan.
Yeah.
If I'm inspired, I do it. I look into it. I've learned over the years of a 45-year career that the people I need to show up right when I need them, and
Yes.
the circumstances arrive, and it's just a blast. The
Yeah.
people that I get to meet are amazing,
Yeah.
like you,
Oh,
and
well,
it's
thank you. Yeah,
I've
this,
never had more fun
yeah.
doing something that is a business, and yet it's still such a joy.
I know. And I think people need to hear that, especially spiritual practitioners, healers, psychics, astrologers out there who are so bogged down by the idea of having their own business or doing all this, and they're very overwhelmed by it. And I just had a client earlier, a couple hours before we've joined here, who was dealing with some money stuff and stuff in her root, and we were clearing a lot of that. And I was telling her my story of how much I made in the corporate environment and how much more I've made in this world. And I think it has come from, not only is it my soul mission to do this full time, but also the joy I get out of it, the fun that has gone into it, the heart that I'm able to put into it. I'm not able to do that at my corporate job. I the pay kept coming every week, but I also only could make a certain amount. So I told her it's scary. It was scary to go out on my own because what if I didn't make enough? But since I've made more year after year after year than I ever did in that environment, and it gets to be fun too, you start to really lock in this code of like, there's nothing else for me to do. And once you find that, that's when you run with it. And I think spirit, once we get in that heart-centered state and we start being of service to other people and using our gifts to help others, it feels so good because it's coming through our hearts. So we're constantly feeling that pleasure and that connection. And these are the rewards that come from stepping into this. Many of you all may have 3 years where you go through a period of death and rebirth and revisiting things and re-strategizing in your business, and it's annoying before it finally you crack the code. But I wouldn't go back for anything. I can't go back either, you know? And the work that we do really does help people. And when we talk about psychics and mediums, everyone thinks they know that they know what that means. And they really don't, because I find that a lot of in the mediumship and psychic world, there's quite a divide between the people who are reading just with their third eye or the ones who are reading with their heart open in their third eye from a healing place. And so even being a psychic and a medium doesn't automatically set you up to be someone who is ascending or higher vibrating than someone else. You know, I've had a lot of mediums take advantage of me, people with neon signs in their windows and people telling me they had to they needed $5,000 to take a curse off of me and that sort of thing. And
What?
they were really good. These are really good
What?
psychics and mediums who were trying to get money out of me. And so I've encountered that sort of energy, and they were spot on about things. They were using their gifts. But I find that,
Wow.
especially like the way that you use your mediumship abilities, we're not just tapping into people's energy without their permission or to just spirit energies who've passed away. We're accessing ascended masters, there's angels, there's all kinds of energies. That's a different level of mediumship and channeling and shamanic work than the traditional um, spiritualist medium that gained a lot of popularity in the 1800s and 1900s, which is where a lot of if you and I have gone to platform mediumship training or mentorship, there's a lot of old school mediumship techniques that come from that aren't based in these new energies of organic light. And so, what do you think about all of that? And tell us more about the way your mediumship operates.
Well, in my classes, and I'm heading to Atlanta in 2 days because I've got my in-person angelic attendant training I do once a year, and we rent out a hotel adjacent to the Atlanta airport for a weekend, and it is just a blast. I
Yeah,
mean, we about blow the roof off the place because the energy is so high.
yeah,
And I'm all about teaching people how to utilize their own skill sets because everybody does it differently. And I find that when people are really rigid about, no, you gotta twirl 3 times, meditate for an hour, jump on your right
the
foot,
old
and raise
school
your left
ways.
hand.
Yeah.
is like, why? That's like trying to get a left-handed child to write with their right hand. Why?
Right.
Who cares? Who cares how they do it? And so my training is 90% transfer of energy, 10% technique, because
Mm,
I want the information to come in how it's going to be best for you. Everybody's going to have their own way of doing it. We're going to have loose parameters. You're going to figure out what works best for you. And for me, I raised my vibrational level. I don't even think about it anymore after 30 years. It's like you get into the car and you turn the key or you push the button. You don't think, ooh, I have to push the button to start my car. You just do
right.
it.
Right.
Just automatic. And what I found in my classes 30 years ago was once I connected with spirit, and again, the thing that brought me in was the medical side of the equation as a healer.
Yeah.
And what I found was once you connect with spirit, you can do it all. I don't
That's right.
understand why in the woo-woo space you got the mediums and the psychics and the pet psychics and the
I know.
NDEers and the
I know.
healers and the it's like you're
I've had
connected with
pets come
spirit, do
through
it
in
all.
readings. I've read for pets, and
Yeah,
people
yeah.
would say, "So is that why isn't this a service on your website?" And I'm like, "It's not something I specifically do on purpose. I thought it just happened now, and I've done it many times before."
Right.
It when you become a hollow bone and when you become an open channel for spirit, it's like if you're channeling Archangel Michael or Yeshua or Kuan Yin and you're pulling in their energy body or their template, their archetype, then that sort of healing or the codes that they carry can move through you just like the Reiki and life force energy can move through you and the Kundalini energy can move through you and transfer to the other person. Where many mediums and psychics I have worked with in the world and worked around, even at psychic fairs and things years ago, they have their one way of doing it. This is what they do.
Mhm.
Um, it's the same way every time, or there's certain techniques that they've learned from
Mhm.
spiritualist
Mhm.
traditions.
Mhm.
And again, they're old school and we all have our way of doing it. But I find that a lot of them are not accessing these organic or higher energies. They're accessing a lot of lower energies, or even when these psychics give negative future predictions. That very rarely happens for me.
Oh, please. Oh,
I
please.
feel like they're accessing that person's Akashic records or their timelines that are possible that are more negative because their heart isn't open or they're geared in that direction as a reader at that time. I don't know. But I just know that's not the way in which my work happens.
No, all spirits are pure love.
Yeah,
Everybody goes to heaven. My
I know. That's going to
my
be a hard one
pastor,
for people to hear.
I know my
And I'm on the
pastor
same page with you. I have been my whole life.
one time said, people are so afraid when they
Yeah,
die. Are they going to fly or are they going to fry?
right.
I said,
Ooh.
I'm going to steal that. I'm going to poach that and use it.
Yeah.
Have at it, girl. But for me, with the medical stuff, I hook into somebody energetically. It takes me a nanosecond. I could find you if you were in a galaxy far, far away. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
And then I envision shooting energy from their feet up through the top of their head. And I'm like a human MRI.
yeah.
It's like I'm looking at an X ray or a CT scan or an MRI. I can see broken bones, torn ligaments, viral infections, bacterial infections, cancer,
I have that
metastasized
I
cancer,
have that
all of
tendency
that.
as well in my code, but
Yeah.
Julie, not everyone can do that. I
Sure,
have
they can. I
encountered a
teach them how to
lot.
do it.
Well,
Everybody can do it.
in the way that you're seeing it, they can sense it. But it
They can
sounds
see
like you're
it
very
too.
clairvoyant with it. Because not all of my clients or everyone I come in contact are as clairvoyant as we are. I'm very clairvoyant. And
Yeah.
I think when you do a medical scan, the feeling and sensation and clairsentience around it all is necessary. But when you're really clairvoyant, things like that become very detailed and very easy for someone like you to read and to spot.
Well, and I've taught hundreds of people from around the world. And what I've found too, Chris, is that like with me, all of the abilities are there. And the more they do it, you lay those neural pathways in the
Yeah.
brain. And
Yeah.
the more you do it, then all of the senses come in. And everybody can do this, has
And
been
my
my
mentor,
experience.
Scott, who was a psychic mentor of mine, Scott Robinson, who has passed away, he always said to me years ago when I was first coming into my psychic abilities and he was helping me, he would say, if you really want to open your psychic abilities, just go hang out and be in a room with other psychics. Your third eye will entrain and tune to the way theirs is all operating, and you will tune in and you'll naturally have heightened abilities just being in that space. And
I
then you can
agree.
really practice
Yep.
there and
Yep.
really get in the mode. And so I worked at metaphysical centers on the side in my corporate days just to be around psychics, just to do readings with them, just to see the way they did it. And it leveled me up so fast
Yeah.
because I think, and that's the thing, someone may not be able to learn it without you broadcasting the frequency always as fast as they are in your presence, but they do have the ability within them, or they couldn't tune to what you're teaching at all.
Well, and I have practice groups for all of my trainings. And my big training, like the one in Atlanta in a
Yeah.
couple of days, we have 9 practice groups a week
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
different days and different
Very
times. And it's
cool.
graduates that get together and it's free for life.
Love it.
And
Love it.
that's when the skills really come in. Because during the training, it's a transfer of energy. And we talk a little bit about technique. But once you do it, it's like driving a car. You can read a book, you
Yeah.
can
Your
ride
system
in the car with
knows,
somebody
the
else.
technique can just come.
And you're right, it's the metronome effect. You put multiple
Yes.
metronomes in a room. So
Yes.
once something's identified in a healing, and I always go in blind first because I want to see where
Me
the
too.
energy is going to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going to go to an area that's asymptomatic and we're heading off a problem at the pass
Yeah.
before it becomes problematic.
Right.
Sometimes it's the root cause of a bunch of different symptoms that nobody's picked up on yet. And then it's spirit working through men with me to help them heal themselves. And those healings can be something getting added, something getting removed. I watch procedures all the time that emulate what I saw in the operating
Yeah.
room for all those
Right.
decades.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I'll see healings that utilize methodologies and devices that haven't been invented yet. And
Mm.
regardless of what I'm seeing
Yeah.
in my mind's eye and experiencing, feeling, knowing, direct knowing, all of those senses are at play, then I describe it to them and it helps integrate the healing into their body
Yeah.
because no doctor, no medical provider, no healer ever heals anybody
Yes.
else. We
Right.
all heal ourselves.
Yeah.
I like to use the analogy of you go to the emergency room with a big cut in your leg and they're going to stitch it up with sutures, but the doctor doesn't make your skin grow back. You make
That's
your
right.
own skin grow back. And
That's
that's
right.
how all this works. The energy healing is part of the overall healing equation
Yeah.
that utilizes Eastern medicine, Western medicine, naturopathic, homeopathic, whatever. And the energy medicine is all part of that healing equation.
Hmm. So it sound. Do you teach others also how to do healing work, other than just opening their psychic gifts and their mediumship abilities and tuning in and being able to receive and possibly give sessions to clients and work with people? Do you also go into the actual healing work itself?
Oh, yeah. It happens
Awesome.
immediately right after something's identified.
Yeah.
Something's identified, the healing just comes, starts, boom,
Right. Right.
spirit's working through us.
Would you
And then,
consider what you do psychic surgery?
nah, it's just healing.
Yeah.
It's just energy healing. But sometimes I see surgeries happen. I see a lot of stem cell energy. I watch body parts get regenerated,
Yeah.
organs.
Uh-huh.
I watch diseased organs get removed. I watch new organs get generated with stem cell energy in a what would be the equivalent of a plastics mold that I
Yeah.
used in manufacturing surgical devices. I'll see a mold of a left kidney and
Yes.
I'll see stem cell energy generate a new one and I'll
Yeah.
watch the diseased kidney, the plumbing get clamped above and below. I'll
Hmm.
watch the diseased kidney get removed. I'll watch the new kidney get put in place, sutured in place.
Hmm.
I used to see transplant surgeries early on. Once stem cell energy became, or stem cells became part of the zeitgeist and
That's right.
people had heard of it,
Yeah, you were able
then
to zoom that. You were able
that
to go into
that
that
is
level.
all all that's used, and
Right.
it'll fix any body part we need. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I'm talking to somebody who calls into my show, it's fast. So people are calling in from all over the world. We're talking to your dead grandma. I'm looking
Right.
at your liver. We're, next guy I'm talking to his dog, whatever.
Right.
When I have somebody for an hour, when one of my graduates, I have several graduates that work with me and they do clients because there are only so many hours in the day for me.
Right.
When I'm working with somebody individually, we can do anything in the buffet of psychicness, and it's usually a combo platter. They
Mhm.
want to do some healing. I just got off the Zoom with a client. She wanted to talk to her deceased mom's spirit in heaven and her grandmother's spirit in heaven, and we did medical stuff. And she's going through a divorce, so we talked about that. We talked about she wanted guidance of what was going to be her next step. Where did she want to live? All of that. So it was a multitude of things that we covered in an hour, not
Yeah.
just pet psychic or medical stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
It's all a combination of whatever they want.
All the things that live within your codex and your tool belt that you
Yeah.
use, that just are part of what has come through for you, and where spirit has led you. Do you feel that you have certain guides besides your higher self, but that you have certain guides or ascended masters or beings that work with you?
Oh yeah,
I'm
it's spirit.
feeling them. That's why I'm
It's
asking.
it's big spirit. It's spirit. We're all a fractal of the divine. And
Hmm.
it's been my experience, Chris, that spirit's going to show up in a different way to different people. Like Pope Clement, who's my
Right.
main spirit
Right.
guide, he shows up with his Pope hat on all the time. And
Yeah.
he's been around for more than 10 years. And I say to him, I said, probably 5 years in, I said, Clement, I know who you are. You don't have to wear the hat. And he said, yeah, but it looks good, don't you think?
Well,
And
The
I said,
singer
yeah,
Prince comes, he's one of my spirit
whatever.
guides, and he always has special shoes and outfits on,
Yeah.
and sometimes instruments. And I'll say, you don't, it's how I'll recognize him. I'll hear or see the boots first, the high heels.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you
Yeah.
don't have to do that, but it's almost like it just, my system, which is translating the frequency of him,
Right.
cannot interact with his frequency without those, what I would call, third eye, pineal gland, clairvoyant images just happening. I mean,
They're
it's almost
so
like he's
fun.
like, you can't receive me without the way that you recognize or know me. And this is
Yeah.
how it
Right.
is.
Right.
This is how it's being translated by your brain and your system. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, so it's not like something you're trying to do, but we know we have our ways of recognizing them. And it's almost like when people ask, what does my mom look like? What does spirit look like? What are they wearing? And I'm like, you all have to understand our brains are creating that imagery, and they're a part of that translation, or they're presenting themselves that way, but they're not wearing that. There's no boot on the foot in the same way it is here.
Well, and it's spirit, God, source, the universe communicating through
Yes,
Prince or Pope Clement.
totally.
A great example is I see angels that
Yeah,
surround people when they're dying. I see angels in the operating room. I have a whole chapter in my Angelic Attendants book about
very
what happens in
cool.
the operating room.
Love that.
Well, angels look to me like what a girl that went through 12 years of Catholic school was taught angels look like:
Right,
big
totally.
wings, white gown,
Absolutely.
rope belt, bare feet.
Yep.
Somebody growing up in an indigenous culture in the middle of the Amazon may see angel energy as a blob of purple fog.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And
Or some kind
so,
of geometric form.
yeah,
Yeah.
spirit's going to show up to us in a way that we can recognize who they are, who that frequency is based on our human frame of reference and
Yeah.
what we personally in our lifetime have experienced and been taught certain things, how certain things appear.
Yeah. And I've also had spirit give me words that were like other words or sounded like other words because I did not have the word that they were wanting me to say in my data bank, in my subconscious. It wasn't there. So there would be times where I couldn't fully translate it because spirit cannot totally give you something. That's why they speak in symbols. That's why they'll speak in these images, or it's based on past memories or things that we've seen before that we're putting together again, and we're translating that image. And people have to understand that, because when they get into this work, the one thing I hear the most is, it feels like I'm making it up.
Oh, yeah. But spirit uses imagination. That's a key
That's the
component.
part of the brain that is active when psychics and mediums
That's
and
right.
shamans are doing their work. It's the
That's
right
right.
side. Where do you think J.K. Rowling got the idea for Harry Potter? She
Exactly.
downloaded it from the field.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
she pulled it in through her right side of the brain, just like we do in our sessions. And I want
Hmm.
people to hear that, because you have a right side of your brain, which means if you open your imagination, you're already opening your psychic gifts.
Right.
You're
And
giving spirit more to work with.
curiosities are really high vibe.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
so,
totally.
when
Yeah,
you're in fear, you're on the I feel crappy channels, which is a low vibration.
absolutely.
And when you go to curiosity, it immediately raises your vibrational level. Furthermore, I had Dr. Daniel Amen on my show,
Hmm.
and he's a psychiatrist who's scanned more brains than anybody else in
Mm.
America, maybe
Oh,
globally. And so I wanted him to scan my brain and see if he could pick up the portions of my brain that I developed to
yeah.
be able to do this woo woo stuff.
So
So he
cool.
did. I
Cool.
went to his clinic and I had a SPECT scan of my brain, and then I had him on the show and he said, yeah, you're this area of your brain, exactly what you were talking about.
Is more developed. Yeah.
He said it's very, very, very busy
And
and
you may
it's
find
very
that in certain
developed.
artists, or these artists who have these spirits, who, like Prince, there are so many Prince songs that were channeled, like Purple Rain, which is about the violet flame. There's so many times where he talks about writing lyrics and they just came out, or he didn't know where it came from, or he would feel the Buddha or Jesus, or he would feel people's energy working through him. And it's because you become a channel when you're creating. And
Yeah,
even when we do sessions, creation, fun, heart, as long as those things are in place, it's going to flow through.
exactly.
And there's so many people listening right now who know that they're psychics and mediums, or they've been told, or they are even somewhat a little scared of it a little bit. And I hope this conversation demystifies some of it, and helps people to understand that, yes, it can be for other people, but our gifts are for us as well. So, Julie, I kind of want to check in with, how do you use all of these gifts for yourself in your life? Like,
Oh, I use them all day long.
me
Is it
too.
in my best interest to, take the freeway or take the
Right.
surface streets?
Yeah.
And yes, I've got GPS, but sometimes I don't have time to make that decision. So I'll ask in a flash, is it in
Totally.
my best interest to do this, do that, wear that, go there, go on this trip? No, Spirit's communicating to us all
All
day
the
long.
time. Yeah.
It depends on where our attention and our intention is. And
And if we're
that's
talking
really
back
how
to
we
it,
focus.
it's us, it's our higher self, it's all kinds of spirit
Right,
energies, it's source.
right.
But it is always communicating. But when we communicate back to it or listen to it, we strengthen its algorithm, and we stop hearing our negative ego or our ego at all as much. And we start hearing that frequency that's constantly coming through the higher self and the higher mind. And when you engage with it, as psychics tend to do, because as dental hygienists have great teeth, us psychics, we're always having a psychic experience, even intentionally. Like when I get to a stop sign, if my phone has shut off or I don't know where to go, I ask my body or spirit left or right, and it will always get me where I need to go. And it's something I had to develop over time. But what I had to develop was trust.
Exactly.
That was the biggest one. But how could I couldn't control it, Julie, when people would come for sessions, or even back in the day when I would just do it at parties. When I would know I'm about to do it, but I was maybe a little drunk. And so I didn't have the fear of,
Yeah.
what if I'm wrong, that sort of thing. So I do credit, you know, Jägermeister for a little bit of my psychic development back when I was 21 years old. But beyond that
Uh,
point, I really, once I had enough people say, you're right, or yes, or that's correct, it became something where I couldn't really stop it sometimes. And also, I wanted to. It felt natural. It felt almost like Spirit was, have you ever felt that with some of your clients or even some people you've done readings for and didn't know you were going to or helped? And you just felt that Spirit was just guiding you toward them. This has to happen, or this is a divine moment that's about to happen.
Oh, yeah. I have a great story about one.
Yeah, please share.
I was in Baltimore, Maryland on a business trip, and my meeting in the middle of the day was canceled or rescheduled or something. And I was across the street from the Basilica, which was the first Catholic cathedral in America, the first diocese.
Yeah,
And I thought,
yeah,
I want to go in and look around because it looks like the US Capitol. It's not a Gothic cathedral. It looks like a courthouse. Looks like the Capitol has a what do they call that dome thing on the top and all that. So I go to mass there, Chris. And there's a funeral. I crashed a funeral.
oh
I
my
sat in the
God.
back. I sat in the back. And I'm looking around and I'm looking at all there's priceless artwork in there because John Carroll, the first bishop in America, he was part of Napoleon's court. And so there's like priceless artwork from
Yeah.
Napoleon's court in there. And after the funeral was over, this woman came up to me and she said, "Are you visiting?" And I said, "Yes, I am." Wasn't that obvious? And she said, "Yeah, it was." And she said, "Well, I work here. Would you like a tour?" I said, "Oh, I'd love a tour." So she gave me a behind the scenes tour. We're down in the undercroft of the Basilica and we're in this little chapel there. And I walked with her through this hallway, and every hair on my body went, psst. Well, that's where John Carroll's buried.
Oh, wow.
It was his crypt, and you
Uh-huh.
walk through it to get to the chapel. So we're in the chapel, and she said, this is a special place to me because my son committed suicide. I say died by suicide. My son committed suicide a year ago, and I came here every day and just cried and cried. And now I'm getting better, but I'm still in deep grief. And she said, "I just wish I knew what he was thinking, what happened." And I said, "Well, as luck would have it, I'm a psychic medium. You want to talk to him?
Right.
He's
Yeah.
standing right there next to you on your
Yeah.
right." And she said, "Oh my God." So we stood there and talked to him for about 20 minutes or something. She
Oh,
got all
that's,
of her questions answered. And you could just see the worry and all the stress and everything just disappear
yeah.
from her face. And I said to her, after we were done talking with her son, I said, "I got to tell you that John Carroll's spirit and Mother Teresa's spirit are sitting over there on that pew in the back of the chapel." And she said, "Go read the little placard that's on the pew." And it says, "Mother Teresa sat in this pew when
Oh
she
my
visited
gosh.
the
Stop.
Basilica in whatever the year was."
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I think that was a great example of, was I supposed to be with that woman when my meeting was canceled? I mean, I
Yeah.
never go to church in the middle of the day during a weekday,
Yeah.
ever.
It feels
I was,
magnetic, like we're the
yeah,
closest transmutational healer, um, light worker. And so it's almost like we're just drawn to where the
yeah.
energy is about to be transmuted because we have the code to do that. That has happened many times, or it has felt that way because you don't always get a description or a pamphlet from spirit. They don't always tell you this is why and this is all the reasons and now
No, no,
you know why
no.
everything's meant to
Yeah.
be.
And
You
no
just do it.
coincidences in life.
Right.
And Mother Teresa and John Carroll's spirits were there. So every time that woman walked into that chapel again, she knew those two spirits were in there
Yeah.
and they were with us and they helped facilitate, I believe,
That.
my communicating with her
Yeah.
son to bring
Very
her
cool.
some grief relief, really, is what it was. And then I sent her a copy of my book
Yeah.
and got a really sweet note back from her. And I thought, if I can be one teeny weeny weeny little comfort to
Yes.
her or to anybody with whom I work, then that's what it's all about.
Well, Julie, we're all grains of sand and or lights on a Christmas tree, and if we turn our light and the light, and if we inspire the lights around us to turn their lights up too, that has a ripple effect, but also the entire tree is lit up just by that one person releasing all of that trauma, grief, pain, worry. You raised the entire vibrational collective right then. And it doesn't matter if it's being lowered by other things out there or whatever the set point has become, you're doing your work as a light worker, even just with that one interaction that didn't even come through your website or a call. It was divinely orchestrated by spirit, because although we are entrepreneurs, we are also always a psychic. We can't turn that off, even though we can live our life and turn that off. We are always going to be that. That's not something we can discard. It was always there. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think it's there with everybody. We've all had experiences where we think of somebody and they call us or we run into them or they text us or they email us and we say,
Yeah,
"Oh, what a coincidence. I was just thinking
I
of
know.
you." Well, there's no coincidence there. And furthermore, we're all healers. We've all either comforted a child ourselves or somebody who's elderly or somebody who's in pain, little kids. So they'll fall. Like my story about my son, Jonathan, I comforted him. I kissed his boo-boos. I sent him on his way. Well, what are you doing? You're a healer.
Right.
And our natural state is joy,
Yeah.
which is the
Yeah.
spiritual state. Look at any baby.
Yeah.
Babies are happy unless they're hungry. They need to be changed. They're in pain or
All
they're
the
tired.
human stuff of coming into the body, as long
That's
as all
right.
that's taken care of, they're
Yeah.
just
They're
happy.
just happy.
Yeah.
And we reset to the level of spirit our frequency does every night when we sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we go back to I say factory preset frequency of
But then
spirit
we
every
wake
night
up and
when we
remember all the
sleep.
programs and remember everything that happened yesterday, and we choose or point our attention back there.
Yeah.
And Abraham talks a lot about that in Law of Attraction teachings about waking up in the morning after leaving the body or going back into spirit. Every single night you have this opportunity, but it's just also part of being here is
Right.
facing these densities, and also a part of being here right now at this time is clearing density and raising the vibration. And so what I'm interested in is you have a lot of clients and people who call in. How many of them do you encounter are conscious of their soul mission, or that they're light workers, or that they're from another planet, like they're star seeds? Like, how many of these types of people do you interact with or get in your work or on your calls?
We don't ever talk about it,
Oh,
ever.
interesting.
They're calling in. They want me to see what phase of transition their loved one's in.
Got
They want
it.
me to
I
scan
see.
them
I
medically.
see.
They want me to find out why their dog's acting like a
Got
fool.
it.
They
Got it.
want to know, what's going to be the best place for me to go in my career journey.
Right.
It's all very basic human stuff. They
Yeah.
believe there's the spiritual component to it,
Yeah.
but we don't get into any of that stuff. I do
Got it.
sometimes when I have guests on my show, but
Right.
it's all very here's
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
need
And
your
see,
help with. I'm using spirit. My whole MO is Ask Julie Ryan is a combination of spirituality and practicality to help you live a life
yeah.
of abundance and joy.
Yeah. And so I want people to hear the difference. I do very similar work to you, but also our missions have led us to in different paths to different types of people and who we're serving. I work a lot. I would say 80% of the people I attract identify as star seeds. And
Mm.
so that's part of what I do, right? So my
Mhm.
mediumship abilities are going to cater towards someone who is experiencing things that I've experienced or that I have expertise in, but I also feel I have contracts with. And so you have your contracts with certain beings and certain clients that we're going to work with. And so I'm wanting to hear wherever you all feel your interest is, opening your mediumship and psychic abilities and really tapping into who you are in a soul level will lead you to the right people that you need to serve.
Mhm. Well, but on the starseed point, I
Yeah.
had a guy on the show who I just adore. His name's Simon Bown, and
Mhm.
he does past life regressions. He's in London. He's in the
Uh-huh.
UK, and he's not in London. He's outside of London, and it just what a gem of a
Yeah.
guy. And I'd never had a past life regression. I'd never been hypnotized. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be fun to do it on the air,
Yeah.
do it
Yeah.
on the show?
Uh-huh.
So I had him on. And the question was, where did this interest in healing originate? And so he regressed me, which was interesting. Have you ever been regressed?
Yes.
Yeah. That was the first and only time I ever had been. I was totally aware of what was going on. It was
I
like
usually
I
am
was
too, but
talking with spirit.
I can be in an altered state while being extremely aware. Like when I do channeling, I can be aware as it's happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to spirit. I'm channeling. It's like you and I are having a conversation, and we got spirit here sitting at the table too, and they're talking as well. So anyway, so he he the question we asked was, where did this interest in healing originate? Well, what I came up with in the past life regression was on a star 500 billion light years away.
Yes.
And I said, what?
Yeah.
And and so not a planet, it was a
Star.
star. And
Yeah.
there was all this energy being infused in me. And I
Yeah.
saw ellipses going around me and energy coming bolts. And it was wild. The other thing that was interesting was I have a dear friend who's a Taoist priest, and I was in his temple, and he said, the wise ones have invited you to come to the upper temple. And I said, cool. I'm a Catholic girl. What do I know about the Jade Emperor?
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
And all these other emperors. And so we go up these stairs, and there's a velvet curtain. And I walked in, and I said, oh my God, the density of the energy, it was almost like feeling like I was scuba diving
Yeah.
underwater. It was almost hard to breathe for
Yeah.
a minute.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you'll equalize. So I'm looking at all of his statues, and he's got the candles and the incense burning and all that jazz. And I'm going, oh, this is nice. I kind of felt like I was in a museum almost. So then I go and I stand on a yin and yang symbol in the middle of the floor, like what's on your hat. Holy Moses. It was an energy portal. This energy came flying up through my feet, went out through the top of my head, was swirling all around me. All of that was like sparklers going off and all this other stuff. And I got a frequency upgrade there. And so afterwards, and I was describing all this to my buddy's son, and he could see all of it. He knew
Yeah.
what was going on. And so afterwards I said, thank you so much for taking me up there. He said, it wasn't me. You were invited. He
Right.
said, there have been a handful of people that have been invited to the upper altar because most people can't handle the frequency there. And you could, which
Yeah.
is why you were invited. So it was amazing. It reminded me of being on that star,
Yes.
500 billion light years away.
Well, I'll tell
So,
you a story really quick.
yeah.
Because the entire time we've been having this conversation, I've been seeing these blue beings, but I can't see them clearly. And I keep feeling a, uh, extra dimensional or other worldly beings coming in as we're talking about your healing work. And
Mm.
so when I had my moment of remembrance around my starseed origins, it did show me humanoid beings at some point, but it took me back further than that, as if I'm going back even more. Like if we were looking at it from a linear perspective from past, present, and future,
Mhm.
it was taking me back from the present into different pasts, all the way back to an origin point. And the origin point was a very large plasmic star, and it
Oh,
was a white violet color. And the color that comes through for you is very blue. And so who knows? I'm not going to tap fully into that right now, but a lot of us, our healing abilities and our consciousness is coming from the plasma realms, or we are
oh, absolutely.
plasma beings from these
Absolutely.
large superstars that could swallow 20 of our suns, that we branched off from and was incarnating into different physical expressions. And so
Mm.
when we talk about being a star seed, it's not just I came from the Pleiades and now I'm here. You could have incarnated from the Pleiades, from this star, and then also did that in Sirius and Andromeda, and came here and lived 18 to 25 lives just in this planetary realm. We're so multidimensional. And so when we get into the realm like we do, the kind of mediumship that we do, which is working with many different types of beings, not just those who have passed away, is a more multidimensional form of mediumship. And so I feel the starseed energy very strongly in you, which is why I was like, really? You don't get anybody calling in about that? I feel it's also how I market myself. I say to the world, star seeds, come here. You know,
Yeah.
you, when people think about mediumship and psychic, they usually think about my pet who has passed away, my loved one. Are they
Mhm.
okay? So it also comes down to you, what your offerings are very broad for people to talk about their life, their job, their career. But I just tend to I'm a little bit more vocal about saying where the witches and the star seeds and the people who are don't feel normal. And so I tend to attract those types more. But we're still doing the same work.
Mhm. Well, and
That's what
I
I
say
think
I'm
is
a
cool.
I'm a businesswoman and an inventor who learned how to do woo woo,
I
and
know,
now I'm
which
a
is so
buffet of
cool.
psychicness. So
Yeah.
it's a different. You're right. It's a different marketing thing, but I think the people that come to us are the ones that we're
That need
supposed
us.
to work
Yeah.
with. And what the heck is 500 billion light years away? I mean, is that even a galaxy? Who
Yes.
knows?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. When I see it, I feel like you're from a large star that has nothing orbiting around it.
I didn't see anything orbiting around it. I agree with you.
It
So what's
is
that mean? What's
some of these stars are so evolved that they have swallowed the galaxy around them and
mm,
become in a singular universal entity that has a whole universe inside of it, but is now like our planets are trying to become a sun. They're going to evolve over trillions and octillions of years into becoming a star.
mm,
And then those stars are going to become big galaxies, and then they'll become these huge super. It's just part of you come from a very high vibrational, as I do, star that it's us, but we're also one of trillions of versions of it. Like solar flares are the sun, but once they travel off of it, they're kind of their own thing. But they
mhm.
came like leaves falling off of a tree. They're the tree, but they're not anymore because they fell off. So we could call it something different. But it's like a huge star in an infinite void or womb. It's interesting. It has its own dimension,
Mm.
you know?
Well, at first, it was so funny, Chris, because I was thinking, a star, wouldn't I have burned up? And then I thought, well,
You are
duh,
it.
it was your spirit.
Yes.
No,
You,
your spirit's not going to burn up. Your
no, yeah.
body could, but
Yeah.
it was your spirit. I was thinking,
Yeah.
talking to myself, saying, well, it was my spirit. That's not going to burn
That's
up.
right.
But my human mind immediately went to another planet, maybe, but a star?
Yeah. How could
Aren't
you
I
live
gonna
there? But
incinerate?
it's almost like you are that star. The consciousness that is in you chose physical expressions, and this is one of them. And so when you
Mhm.
do your healing work, you're actually tapping into an irrigation or a plumbing system that goes really far in our physical dimensional space time reality. That feels really far. To spirit, it's right here, it's right
Yeah,
next to us, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And so you're bilocating when you're healing, is what I'm seeing, just as many of us do. But that's part of what's coming through, and why it comes through so easily is you're accessing this huge data bank, but also like electrical source of energy
Mhm.
that comes through your natural code, which probably makes the healing work that you do very more unique and unique to you, but also just very easy and effective. Where it was like, why didn't I have to do something? Sometimes when I'm talking to clients about healing their shoulder, they'll start feeling it heal. And before we even get to doing anything, it's gone. Just
Yeah,
because we were talking about it for 10 minutes.
yeah, yeah.
It's so weird.
Exactly.
It's like, did a future version of me already do it? And so now we tune to that. There's so much about this work that people see from a very physical 3D linear way, which we have to crack all that open and understand that where it's coming from and what it's doing is so beyond sometimes our
Right.
comprehension. So
Well, and we don't understand how everything works in healing.
I
For
know
example, anesthesia, anesthesiologists don't know how it works. They
that's
know
so
it just
weird.
works. They have no clue. how it works. They just know that they apply these gases in this medicine, and you're going to go to sleep and you're going to be like on death's doorknob,
I know.
knocking.
I
And then
know.
they bring you back up, and they're looking at all their monitors and stuff. Next time you're around an anesthesiologist, ask them, say, "Do you understand how anesthesia works?" And they'll be the first to tell you, "No, we have no clue. We just know it
That's
works."
so wild.
And
Yeah,
you think about that and you think, really, how many people have surgery every day and use general anesthesia?
I know.
And yet we don't understand how the another example that I like to use, and people saying, "Well, what do you mean the energy field?" And I said, "Well, have you ever heard of an EEG or an EKG?" Well, yeah, everybody's heard of that. Well, what are they doing? They're they're in the frequency of your brain waves outside of your head.
Yeah,
They're
right.
not in your brain
Right.
checking out what the brain
They're
waves
tapping
are.
into the aura,
Exactly.
which you all
Same
say
thing
doesn't
with the
exist.
heart. Same thing with the
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah, the heart field.
They're looking at it outside of the body.
Mhm.
And so we're all doing that, but it's just something that we've become used to. And then we take it to the energy healing. We don't understand it. It worked. We
Right.
don't have to understand it.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with you, Chris, that we're in the plasma energy. That's how we're able to do all of this.
Yeah.
That's how the spacecraft, you'll have a fighter pilot that'll see a spacecraft and it's there, and then all of a sudden it
Just
disappears or
gone.
goes straight up and it
Yeah.
disappears. What are they doing? They're in the plasma
That's
energy,
right. That's right.
and there's no time or space in the
That's right.
plasma field.
And I feel that that's where we're heading, and that's why the plasma light beings are coming so much from different realms. I have a lot of connections and history, and am a star seed with from the Andromeda galaxy, and so there are plasma light beings and aspects of my future incarnation there, or from my perspective, it would be future incarnation there that flies over and interacts with me, and it is physical. It is there. It's not a psychic vision, but it's plasma light, which is why they're able to shape shift and move so quickly and just be there and not be there.
Yeah.
And they're also very telepathic because, whether it's my higher self or it's another Andromedan or not, they're able to tap into the frequency of that who they're trying to contact, which has obviously been me, and I'm sure there are many, many others out there. But this plasma energy is the goal. We are currently transitioning from carbon based matter to crystalline DNA and crystalline light. And the next step after that is pure plasma light. So
Mm.
if you're working with plasma light energy, even in your healing, and don't realize it, Julie, you're doing star seed, way weirder woo woo stuff than
Oh,
even
I
some of
know.
your
I
clients
I know.
are
I
ready
know.
to hear, you know?
Well, we don't get down into the weeds. It's just
Right.
what's the bottom line,
I can't
you know.
I can't help but tap into it though during our time.
I don't know. Oh
So
yeah,
I'm like,
absolutely. But I
this
don't do
feels
that
way
with my
more
client.
galactic and intense than she's making it out to be. She's very like, we're doing a healing. And I'm like, well, I know it's that every day for us. But
Yeah.
what I'm seeing and where it's coming from is pretty special. It's not just coming from Mother Earth, which is beautiful and special and powerful. It's not just coming from your Kundalini. I could see it coming from upper realms. And that's special. That
Right.
I think everyone could do that, but not
Bring it
everyone
on.
is that connected at this time. So
Yes.
it's really cool to see the connection.
Well, and it's we touched on this earlier too, Chris, and it's developing those neural pathways, and everybody has the ability to do it. And
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
going to do it in their way that's going to be unique to them.
yeah.
And it's all perfect because everybody's different. Everybody's going to be attracted to somebody that's going to resonate with them.
Mhm.
And we we just all work together, I think, to help others. And that's what it's all about.
That's 5D. That's the unity consciousness we're moving into. And I think no matter what names you put on it, so many of us are out here doing the work and following our bliss and just doing what
Yeah.
feels good to us. And that's also healing in and of itself. So thank you, Julie, for being here and having this conversation with me. And I've had lots of aha moments, and I'm sure my audience will have these moments with me of just like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. So I really appreciate you bringing through these wisdom codes and all this information, and sharing your story, which is so relatable. Because I can't tell you how many mediums I've talked to who were haunted as a child, and you had the whole thing. And so many others did not have that experience, and they're just as powerful mediums, if not more, because they have no trauma around it. And so thank you for bringing that into this space. Is there anything else you want to share with us before you go?
Yeah, anybody that wants a free copy of Angelic Attendants, what happens as we transition, we're all going to lose loved ones.
Yeah.
We're all going to be there ourselves someday. And there are diagrams in here that shows how the angels and our
Oh,
loved one
wow.
spirits and pet
Very
spirits.
cool.
Anybody that wants a free copy of it, just go to askjulieryan.com. On the homepage, you'll say, click here for a free, we'll send you a free digital and audiobook
Oh,
download.
awesome.
And we have
Awesome.
it in Spanish as well. You're welcome to buy the paperback. I give away thousands and thousands of these. There are many churches of all denominations and synagogues. My Catholic church gives a copy of the book to
Wow.
everybody that comes in to
Yeah.
plan a funeral.
So it covers many bases and is for a broad range of people.
Well, it does, because everybody's going to lose a loved one and
Right.
everybody's going to die themselves. There's also a chapter in there about what happens in the operating room, how
Mm.
deceased loved ones, spirits and angels are in there, and surgeon spirits, and a little bit about my journey too, and how I started learning this woo-woo stuff. And so I just believe this stuff should be taught in the schools, because people are
Yeah.
so afraid. There's lots of information out there about the afterlife and grieving and near death experiences. But there isn't much about what's happening when somebody's really dying. And that's what people are afraid of. Many hospice organizations give a copy of my book to all of their
Oh, wow.
families who have patients there too. And
Love it.
if you read the Amazon comments, I think there's over 600 of them. And they're all, oh my God, this was so helpful. I couldn't have gotten through,
Yeah.
my loved one's final days without knowing this.
Yeah.
And on AskJulieRyan.com, if you have somebody who's in your world who's dying, you can go to AskJulieRyan.com and just go to the 12 phases page. And there's a chart there of the different phases that's a free download. And I suggest that people download it, save it on their phone, and then when your loved one is progressing and you want to know where they are, you just say, well, what phase is grandma in? And
Wow.
you'll hear a number in your head, and
Hmm.
then you refer to the chart. And if you see that they're going through a phase like 7, 8, 9 in rapid succession, you want to bring the family in.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, people are taking time off work, they're traveling far distances to be with their loved ones at the end. And it's very, very helpful in supporting not only the person who's dying, but also the rest of the family.
Wow. Well, that sounds incredible. And I'm going to put all that in the show notes
Okay,
below
terrific.
so that they can all check out your book, but also your website and your show and all that you have to offer. And I just want to say I see you and I appreciate you. And I'm also going to check out these books. They sound incredible, especially Angelic Attendants. So everyone go to askjulieryan.com. Check out all of her offerings and services and just get a feel for her energy. And of course, get the free book. I mean, that's such an amazing gift that you have for the world and all of our listeners. And again, I'll put all of this information in the show notes below so people can find you. Thank you all so much for being here for another episode of Ascend the Matrix podcast. We'll see you all next time.